It's like Wayne's World being sponsored.
Yeah.
Party.
Yeah, party on Wayne and party on Garth.
I guess.
Wayne's World. Wayne's World. Dude, those are my two favorite films of all time. Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2.
I had zero problems with the second one. It was not supposed to be the first one.
I thought it was funnier than
it was supposed to be a different take. Like, it was a broader scope. I'm fine with it.
I like when they meet the roadie and they're going through his like photo albums and they're like, oh, like this is you with Led Zeppelin. This is you with Ozzy. Who's this old lady? He's like, that's my old lady.
My old lady.
Oh, I love that bit. But all right. Well, I guess I'm gonna get moving here.
Okay.
Hello, weirdos. Welcome to Not Weird, Just Homeschooled. I'm your host, Gheramy Demery, and with me, I have a very good buddy. Go ahead and introduce yourself. I forgot to tell you that before we started. Is that I have my guests introduce their own names.
Oh, I don't like to talk about my own self.
Yeah, I was gonna say before we get into that, like the reason why is I'm really bad with names, and even in stand up, when I'm hosting, I will forget people who I've known for years. I'm like, who?
So is this your covering that you don't know my name?
No.
Okay.
I know you're Will Boner.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome to Not Weird, Just Homeschooled.
I'm Will Bonner, actually.
Bonner? I thought it was Boner.
No. That's what everyone calls me.
Oh.
It's Bonner. Like,
I always just thought it was Boner.
Nope.
And I was just an immature fuck.
Nope.
So it's Bonner and
Will
I'm still
Boner.
an immature. Yeah.
Will Boner would be my porn name. No, Bonner. It's Bonner. There's two N's. And I always since kindergarten, it's been mispronounced, and it doesn't faze me at all anymore.
You would make a great like 80s movie villain.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here comes Will Boner, like fucking Will Boner, everybody.
Well, when I was,
you're like, I'm here to beat up nerds
with a boner.
With a boner.
No, but I mean, like when we were kids, Growing Pains was a popular show, and there was a character named Boner on the show, and everyone I'd go to school, and everyone's like, "Dude, that's your name," and I'm like, "Whatever, I don't care anymore." But no, it's Bonner.
Yeah, I mean, I have a buddy. His name's David Horning, and I guess growing up, everyone would call him Horny.
Yeah,
David Horny,
because you're kids and they're hilarious. They think it's hilarious, and that's the way.
So clever, right?
Yeah, very good job, guys.
And so his way of pushing back was always like, "I am horny."
Maybe I am,
and it makes everyone uncomfortable to a point. And then he's now taken the power's now in his hands.
Yeah.
And then if he gets rock hard in front of somebody, he'd be like, "You told me I was horny."
And people say Will Boner, and I was like, "Don't tell me what to do." It's like maybe, but let me at least meet the person first.
I didn't know. I always thought it was Boner. I didn't know it was Bonner. Nope. I had a friend growing up too. His name was Frankie Butts.
Okay.
And believe it or not, his dad was also named Frankie Butts. I was really hoping at some point somebody would have been a Harry Butts.
Harry Butts. Yeah. No, I had to think about it when got two boys, and I'm like, you have to strategically name them so that they don't have that happen in the long run as easily as I did with William Bonner, whatever.
Yeah.
You grow up, when you're younger, kids call you Willie Boner. You guys are just, yeah.
It's too easy.
As a kid, it was creative, and now you get older, you're like, try harder, guys. Come on.
Yeah. It's got to be really annoying growing up. But I was also Gheramy with a G, and everyone called me Gheramy or Demery, but it's still not like that bad.
The G's silent, guys.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's just bad. That's how pretentious I have always grown up to be. It's just like, guys, it's a soft G, assholes.
Yeah. But it's capitalized.
Yeah.
Capital soft G.
Yeah, that's right. You like what? You should name one of you. I wish you would have named one of your kids like Wolfgang or Blaze. Blaze Boner.
Well, I went through all the ones that would be absolutely the worst. Hugh, Harry would be terrible.
Sure.
If I had a girl, Anita or Amanda, awful. It'd just be terrible.
Anita Boner. I never would put 2 and 2 together. To be honest with you, I'm not that clever.
Well, yeah. Well, I had a lot of time.
A lifetime, really.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. There's more old world names. Iona is the actual girl, a name for a girl. Iona. There's an actual name, Everhard. That's an actual middle name. So if I named a girl Iona Everhard, what? Wow, you've set her path for life,
Right? Yeah, and also a lot of really great porn names.
I know, but and you can't even act like, well, is that your stage name? Sure, yeah, stage name since birth. Iona Everhard Boner would be a great name, but it's all girls' names. But that sounds more like that should be a guy's name.
So how's that, like, growing up with the last name Boner? How's like that affected you dealing with kids in like grade school and stuff like that?
Well, you go through phases of it because in kindergarten, teacher pronounced it wrong, and all the kids laugh just because it's wrong. They don't know what they're hearing. And then you go to school, like you go to first grade, but you're mixing in with first through eighth. I went to a Catholic grade school, so you're mixing in with all those kids, and they all just know, like, oh, here comes the new, like, new kid. I heard his name is Boner, and they say that, and they think it's hilarious. Now you're getting this social. As you get more interested in being social with kids, the social stigma kicks in, where it's like they're pronouncing my name wrong, and now I know what it means, and now I think they're making fun of me. So you keep your head down and just hope that they just don't even talk to me. Like, don't see me, don't pay attention to me. Until you get past that, well, I mean, you can go one of two ways. You either continue to keep your head down and let them throw eggs at you verbally.
Sure.
Or you pick your head up and you just walk into it head first. And I went with walk into it head first. And I just decided I was sick of just, like, don't let it beat you up.
How long before you did that, though? Like, how old were you? Do you think you were? You were like, you know what? I'm so tired of, like, being offended by this that now I'm going to embrace it and kind of turn it on its head.
I think maybe like fifth grade.
Wow.
Fifth or sixth grade. Because I also...
That is bold, man.
You want to hear some more?
Yes.
You ready for this? My first name is Gregory. I'm a junior. I've always gone by my middle name, William. So at school... You're welcome.
Who are you?
You're welcome.
Who are you?
I'm also...
yeah, holy shit. Yeah, because how long have we known each other?
Since 2009.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little bit before that, I think.
Actually, probably before that, because
friends of friends,
5 o'clock, and so we've probably known each other for at least 15 years, probably.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, but I mean, I've always been a junior. So when I was at home, family and friends called me Will, and then I would go to school from kindergarten up till fifth grade, and they would call me Greg at school, and I hit fifth grade. You get to middle school, and the teacher's like, okay, when I say your name, say here, and then tell us how you want your, whatever.
Oh, wow.
What do you want to be called? How do you want us to use your name? So the first kid in the class is alphabetical. First kid was Daniel.
What kind of woke school did you go to? No, I'm just kidding.
Outside my house. Where I had to do this every year.
This guy, yeah.
Yeah, where every year you didn't have to do a roll call with your parents. Yeah.
It's mostly like, are you awake? Yep.
Yeah.
And then, okay, cool.
Sure. Can you sit up? Can you just at least sit up?
Even half the time.
But the first kid's name was Daniel. And he said, I'm here, yeah, but I go by Dan. And then she's like, all right, Gregory. And I'm like, here, but I actually, I go by Will. She's like, I didn't mean for you to just tell me what you decide you want to be called. She was mad. She thought I was just making a joke.
Oh, so she wasn't woke.
No, yeah, no.
Yeah, she's not really going to get on board with the whole pronouns. So
I had to explain to her. I was like, look, no, my middle name's Will, and I go by my Will at home, and at school I'd like to just start doing the same. And she's like, okay, all right. So from fifth grade, and then the rest of it was fine. But I think that's when I think that was part of the switch. I took ownership of the situation. So then it became all right, that's fine, that's cool.
That's really cool. I'm really kind of surprised that the age, because it's I'm still not confident. So I like to think of myself as I'm truly introverted, but I'm trained to be extroverted. And if I had the choice of if there was a way to still continuously be, I guess, underground with art, then I would have just done that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it didn't require the response from an audience, what I do, then I would just be alone. But
I think a lot of the thing, like everything, I mean, it applies to many things. The first step is the hardest step. So saying that out loud to the teacher, like having the nerve to stand up and be like, yeah, but I want to be called this now. And then she was pushed back, and I had to push a little bit harder and be like, no, this is legit. I'm not just making this up.
Sure.
Okay. And then all the kids were even like, what are you talking about? We've known you for 4 years. And now you're like, but half of them also knew, yeah, he's always tells us to call him Will. So let's just roll with it.
Did you not want to be Greg because you didn't want the association to your father? What was that like?
Well, my parents were divorced.
And
they got divorced in kindergarten. So the whole time I'm at home, my family always called me Will. Even like my dad's side of the family always called me Will. It was never a thing. I was never Greg. I didn't identify that way or feel that way. Like,
yeah, it's weird hearing. I had no idea.
Now that you know that, you're like, you don't look like a Greg. And that's what I hear all the time. And then like, you don't look like a Greg. But I didn't know that you had to be a certain way to be a Greg.
I had to grew up with a Greg, and he'll be on this show, and he's an idiot. I love him, but he's a moron. Yeah. I think you know him. Greg Smith?
Yeah.
Tall, gangly motherfucker.
Yeah. He's got the baboon heart, right?
Yeah, him and I both were homeschooled.
Oh, okay.
We're a part of like the same homeschooling group, but that honestly didn't matter. I don't think we ever really knew each other from that. We just kind of grew up in the same neighborhood, so
all right,
we kind of met through people.
Okay,
but yeah, it's weird meeting another homeschooler out in the wild. You tend to latch onto that person.
There was I remember a girl in high school. She popped up because I went to Catholic grade school, but then public high school. And everyone's like, oh, that's so-and-so. And I'm like, okay, what's the big deal? They're like, oh, she's been homeschooled forever. We've never really seen her before. She came to school for a couple weeks and then disappeared again. And I think I have to assume she didn't like the way it felt. She was so used to the one way, she wanted to go back to the
culture way. Shock is probably intense. I know it was for me, but going to I was homeschooled up until like my sophomore year of high school, and then I didn't even go to high school. I went to college, so I started taking like early college classes. So all of my classes went from being in my bedroom to being now in college, college classes, and a college campus, community college campus, and yeah, it was crazy. It was hard at first. It was very, very difficult. And I didn't even have at that point, the bullying was kind of over. You know what I mean? No one was really bullying each other then.
Yeah.
Because they were all the bullies.
Let's be honest. There's still people even at a sophomore college level where you're like, really, man?
Yeah, there was some bullying, but it wasn't like, and I don't know, even growing up in the neighborhood, like some of the bullies that were in my neighborhood, like, I was at a point where, like, I don't have to deal with you if I don't have to. Like, if I don't want to deal with you, I could just go home. I don't have to go into school and see you on Monday and get harassed from you again.
Yeah.
So I kind of had a lot of, like, I guess, leverage in that way. It was, like, even, like, I noticed when I was growing up, like, 13, 14, the big thing was, like, Jackass and all, like, the CMYK guys. Or CKY guys.
They were a color spectrum. They were a colorful group of people.
CKY guys, like, that's so funny. That's like a perfect example of like a homeschooler. It's like, yeah, I was close.
It was the TCBY crowd.
Yeah, I was like in the ballpark.
Froyo.
The TGI Friday people.
Yeah, they're great guys.
Yeah, but they're like, like kids would be like tasing themselves or tasing each other or whatever.
Yeah,
as like, and there's like no cameras or anything. It was like for zero reason
because they saw other people doing it.
Yeah, they saw it on Jackass or whatever, and they're like, oh, like they would want to get me involved. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to go home.
Yeah. I
don't want to be tased. Why would I want that?
I'll see you guys on the news. Bye.
Yeah, that's funny. So you weren't the only person in your family. How does your family deal with that? Like a lot of your like family, you're the only child. So
yeah, I'm an only child. My mom is remarried, so she doesn't like. There's no mispronunciation of her. I'm the only boner standing. I have like cousins. I think one of them is around here. His brother. I'm closer to my other cousin. I think he moved out to New York. Last I know, he was doing documentary filmmaking.
Oh wow,
in
that's
New
great.
York, which is really cool.
That is very cool.
But his name is Matt. And
No, I don't like him because I'm jealous of his life.
Well, there's a famous actor named Matt
Bonner?
Bomer.
Oh.
Bomer, like, and he's in he's on Doom Patrol right now on HBO Max. He plays one of the characters on that show.
Good for him. That's
DC
awesome.
show. But I mean, I've heard the actor's name, and
Do you think of your cousin every time?
every single time, it's like, what? Oh, like, God damn, that'd be great.
This guy's the fucking coolest.
Well, the actor in the show, like, at first I didn't. I just like quickly saw the name pop up on the screen, and I was like, no way. I was like, serious? That can't be. It's not. But and then the actor in the show, his whole face, this character is almost like the Invisible Man. He's constantly wrapped up in bandages. You never see his face.
Oh,
So I was like, is that my? It's not. It's not. It's a more famous.
How close are you with this cousin? Like enough to like recognize him?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. He's the only family member I actually talked to on my dad's side.
Oh, nice. So yeah, how does he deal with it?
Him and I are this. I think that's why we got along so well. Him and I were the same in high school. It was the same thing. You blow it off, just whatever. It's like I actually shadowed before I was in eighth grade, and I shadowed my cousin. He went to St. Ed's. It was his brother, Chris. It was his older brother. So they're like, come and shadow for a day, so you can just kind of get a feel of what Catholic grade high school's like. And I was like, all right, cool. So you go in there, and you get so used to it, it just becomes part of it. And humor becomes your defense mechanism.
Sure.
And I know you understand that.
I was chubby growing up, so humor was my way of coping with being chubby.
And I'm chubby now, so that's my way of
yeah.
now, yeah.
I'm still chubby, so it's not something
If only you were funny, too.
I stick to bits. That's what it's like my commitment to the bit, really.
Yeah, yeah. But I walk in behind the school and I go in and I had to shadow him. And I'm just following him around for his classes all day. And they're like, this is my cousin, Will. And they're like, oh, another boner. And I'm like, yeah, get it all out now, guys. All the jokes. 2 boners in one place. Is this possible? Like, what else can we talk about? And I just like, there's a scene. What was
That's
it?
so good.
There's a scene in like, it's an Adam Sandler movie. I think it's like Happy Gilmore. He's like, my parents are dead. Do you want to talk about that too? No, it was The Wedding Singer.
Yeah.
And they're like, why would I want to talk about that? He's like, I don't know. Let's move on, people.
Which is funny because I think his parents were dead in both movies.
I think you're right. Yeah, because he was raised by his grandma or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, either one. I think it was Wedding Singer. Though.
He rolls with a lot of the same. Back then, he would roll with a lot of the same gags. I mean, a lot of movies he started pulling his gags off of his comedy albums.
That's true.
And it's like,
that's what built those characters.
Yeah, half of Little Nicky was jokes from his albums.
Oh man, that movie's so good.
But yeah, I mean, it was always a defense mechanism. Like my cousin did the same thing, and then he even saw me do it in school. He was just like, "That's the way you got to be, man." He's like, "No matter where you go to high school, be ready for the fact that you're going to have to deal with people trying to make fun of your name, and they're going to pick on everything. If they see it get to you, that's when they're not going to stop. So you can't let it get to you, and if it does, you need to swallow it until you can get somewhere else and you can let it out without them all knowing that it's hurting."
Is your cousin older than you?
He was like 1 year older than me.
Oh, so enough back when you're younger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Enough for you to look up to him, like, oh, he's 1 year older. Is that?
Yeah.
Like, my cousin Chris is only a year older than I am, and I always looked up to him big time. Or maybe it was 2 years, but whatever. It was not much time. Like, now that you're older, you're like, oh, we're basically the same age. Yeah. But like back then, you're like, holy shit, there's so much more.
And we weren't even really close. He knew I was closer with his brother, his younger brother, same age. But it was enough to have that, like, don't let anybody bother you. Don't let that get to you. And then my cousin, I ended up going to public high school in my hometown. I had a cousin who was a junior, different name, totally different last name. Like a cousin as in like close family friend who we called each other cousins because we've just known each other for our whole life.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And she's like, you can use my junior locker. You don't even need to be in the freshman hallway. You're not going to get picked on as a freshman. So I had a lot of junior acquaintances as a freshman. And she was a smoker, so we'd go to the smoker's corner before school. So I was in with all the punks, all the dudes wearing the Dead Kennedy jackets. I was in with all those guys. And they were like, if anyone picks on this kid, we will kill you. And I'm like,
that's amazing.
Well, then I guess I'm a made man now. Yeah. Okay.
You had clout with the the kids who were older, so the kids who were a little younger didn't fuck with you. That's awesome.
Right. But I still kept my head down. I didn't like stir the pot. Like I didn't try and like, well, no one can touch me because these guys went. No, I just.
You don't seem the type.
It was a silent thing, and just let it be.
Yeah, because you have more of like, I just want to be cool with everybody, not like. I don't want them to fuck with you because I know I can get away with it.
Right. Humor was always my go-to. I always knew that it's like family parties, be the one that makes everybody laugh. Everybody's smiling, everybody's happy. You did something right. That's the way I always felt.
Sure.
So taking that into high school, join drama. I was in drama. I always wanted to do more artsy stuff. I always trying to be on everybody's good side. Never had any enemies. Didn't walk around being bitter or sour.
Yeah, you've always had a
deflects.
Every time we've ever talked, we've always had like a good. It's always like we're ready to like run bits and like.
I know we're back and forth.
Yeah, we just like to. It's never like we almost never get into anything really that serious, other than like, how you doing? Good. How you doing? Good. And then we just start like cracking jokes.
I mean, like the last time we saw each other we were in the parking lot of our friend. That was her service.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And we were still like trying to keep it light,
Well,
there was some seriousness, obviously, to the situation. But when we were outside and everybody was sitting and kind of like trying to like be with each other. I feel like
I don't know if this is true for you, but I think it is. But I feel like you and I have gone through that enough times to like, to kind of know like how to handle ourselves and try to be uplifting.
Yep.
Where for a lot of the people there, this was like their first time going through this type of situation.
Yeah, we went through it with Mitch.
Just so many people along the way, and like, well, it wasn't even that much. Yeah, it was. It's just been so many people along the way, for me at least, that it was like I kind of felt bad that I was like almost a little bit emotionally callous to the whole situation, because it's like, do I really want to spend this much of my energy in life being sad? And it's like, I'm sympathetic towards that person. I'm going to miss them. But like, I think it almost gives me a point of like, okay, there's a different role I can play in this situation, is just try and be, find my spots that I know it's appropriate and make that joke.
And I think you touched on that one. The big time is the appropriate factor. It's like, you're good at reading a situation. You know that there's so far you can go as far as being lighthearted to certain people. But if it was just pretty much just you and I that were talking for the most part. And maybe like we'd be around a couple other people. Some people felt the need to drink the moment away. Some people felt the need to stay quiet and somber and a little sad, and other people, everybody handles it differently. And if I were to sync up to a different part of that group at the time, you just have to know how to kind of read the situation.
Sure. And I might have been a little heavy-handed with the jokes because I kind of, I don't know. But I felt like, clown, man. Yeah, like the clown, I felt like I knew when to place those jokes, even in the saddest of like the people who are like truly in the depths of like the depression and like the sadness of it all. And I knew how to like where and when, because I'd gone through that so many times.
Right.
It's like, I know now, like kind of where to place those jokes.
But we also, once we got in and we went in and there was the actual service, it was still light. It was a light mood, and it was on purpose because everyone realizes and agrees that person that we were there for wouldn't have wanted everybody. They would have wanted a peppy, happy group of people celebrating, not mourning. So it almost validated everything that we were like the way we were. Like we were there to celebrate for one more time. And
even the moment before she passed was like, we all had met at the hospital, and everyone else pretty much all took like turns because we're still with COVID, so there can only be so many different people, so many people in the room and whatnot. And so, they're like, "Oh, do you want to go and say goodbye to her before she passes?" Like, no, I don't want to be. She doesn't need me there. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't need me there. She needed them there, but she didn't need me. And I didn't want my last memory of her being that. Like, my last memory of her is her beating all of our asses in poker.
Right.
Like not even a month or two earlier. Yeah. That's what I want.
Yeah.
And like, I think that was kind of shocking to them that I didn't want to go in the room. But like I've been in this situation before. I've already been in the, I've been in the room when this shit happens. And it's like, it sucks. I wish I didn't.
Yeah.
And but I do think it's something that you have to put yourself through to have the maturity to go, oh, I don't want this to be my last memory of such and such. And then which also kind of gave us a little bit of like a wiggle room as far as it not being such a reality, I guess. I don't know. We were able to like kind of disconnect. I don't know if disconnect is the word, but like not be so in the depths of the depression of it, I guess. I don't know. But how do you feel like your name is like affected some of your relationships or friendships growing up with kids? Like
sometimes it's an icebreaker. Like and even now, like if I'm I'll be up at LBM, sitting there. If George is working, George introduces me to everyone as Boner. Everyone. Walk in, their photographer is there taking pictures, and she's like 2 seats away, and she's taking some shots of drinks, and she's taking some shots of like stuff for the new menu or whatever to post up on their social media. And he's like, "Have you met Boner?" And I'm just kind of like, I just put my head. I'm like, do you even know my actual name anymore?
I don't think he knows. I bet he's a lot like me, where I just thought it was Boner the whole time.
And I was like, dude,
I've never heard it being called Bonner.
Yeah. It's because no one does. Everyone, it's just a nickname. Even like when we worked together at Melt, Vicky, I got the job because when I kept filling out applications, I would sit up there, I'd sit at the bar and get salad and soup and water. Every time they would open, Dave was working every single shift. I would make sure Dave was there, and I'd make sure she was there. And I kept filling out apps. And then she's just like, look, we have no spots open. I'm like, that's fine. I'll keep coming in. And then until one day I turned it in, and she looked at it, and I'm going, yes, I know what it says on the application, but feel free to call me Boner. And she's like, oh, my God, that's it. And she was so excited. So then she started calling me that all the time.
She's like, I don't care that we don't have a spot. You're hired.
Yeah, we'll find a way. She found a way. She crammed me into the schedule, and I'm like, I pretty much got the job.
If there's anything we know,
that's what she loved. That was hilarious.
If there's anything we know about Vicky at that time, is she knew how to cram a boner.
She found a way to fit it in. Yeah. So she used to love the fact that if she needed something, I'd be working or whatever, she would yell Boner, and then I would in response yell coming.
Oh my God!
Through the entire restaurant.
I'm trying so hard to be as mature as possible, but that is fantastic.
That's too late.
Those are perfectly written jokes. Like those are like that is solid rapport.
That's what we did.
That's good shtick.
And straight faced. She would sing it almost like you, and I would yell it back the same way.
Yeah, if you knew the person, like she definitely had a very sing-songy way of like communicating her humor, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But when she was serious, sometimes that was even making her mad was actually a pretty good pastime for me, especially when I was in the kitchen. Oh my God, it was my favorite, dude. One time she told us that like you can't be in the weeds if you don't care. And we had a field day with that.
You can't be in the weeds if you don't care.
This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
So she basically said, don't care?
Yeah. It's like, then we like kept saying like, you can't have cancer if you never get it checked out.
That's kind of the yeah. You can't be hungry if you
choose not to eat.
You choose not to eat food.
Yeah.
You won't even know the difference.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
So funny. Like I was like, wow, like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And she was sincerely trying to like make us feel better because we were getting slammed and it was just a busy night, and sometimes it got frustrating when it was that busy,
right?
And it was relentless, and so she was trying sincerely to like cheer us up, but like what cheered us up more was making her mad that we did like that statement.
Whatever it takes, I guess. Yeah. You know what? And she was good enough to probably like just sit there and deal with it too.
I felt bad. I talked to her like I wished her a happy birthday. When was her birthday? A month or two ago. And she responded to the text like, "Hey, like thanks, how you been? Blah blah blah." And I never responded back.
That's okay, but
I forgot all about it.
That's her
right
MO
now.
as well, though. Like,
yeah,
I don't even have her phone number anymore. If I respond to her, it's like it goes through like an email address, and then she gets
really?
She gets it on her phone, but it goes through that. Like I don't have her number anymore.
Weird. She's had the same number.
I know. I don't think I ever had her number.
Wow. Yeah, because
even when
she's still in my phone as her maiden name.
Yeah, it's Green.
Yeah, it's Green. Yeah,
Green Machine.
Vicky Green. As I knew her when I think I knew her before she worked at Melt.
A lot of people said they knew her from like the Harp and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't part of any of those circles. I didn't come into the job having like half of us are from the Hard Rock and we're all the misfits that got fired from these 3 places. And I was like, I've never worked in a restaurant in my life. I've never worked in a restaurant before.
Really? Wow.
That job.
That is surprising to me because you seem to be pretty you caught on to it pretty quickly.
Well, I think that's one of my social skills is knowing that I have to adapt and be okay with whatever situation gets thrown at me based on name factor, like having to deal with that throughout your life. Then I was in the military. You have to roll with different things in the military.
Sure.
You never know who you're going to work with. You never know who's going to say what to you. I've just been able to socially chameleon myself into whatever. So when I knew I wanted to, I'm like, oh, I like the people that work here. I want to work here. I like the atmosphere. I like the attitude. Everybody seems cool. I just kind of fit in. And then I've never done the job before, but it's like, all right, learn the job, do the job again tomorrow. To me, it was just like literally just do that.
That's awesome.
And that's kind of how like every job has been with me, even my job now. I've never done my job I do now before. You can't prepare for where I work. Like you.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, that's maybe the end big reveal.
That'll be the
superstar. So yeah, it seemed like you, and also too, I think if you. Even the mistakes that you make, I don't think that anybody's ever really defined by the mistakes they make is how they handle those mistakes is usually how people view them. And you seemed like a kind of person who was charming enough, even when they made mistakes, people were kind of okay with it because you would like kind of charm your way out of like, oh, I made a mistake. You were a humble person. You didn't like be like, oh, you made excuses for yourself. You just kind of made fun of like, oh yeah, I fucked up. And made fun of the moment and then moved on. Like,
well, I mean, there were times where and it wasn't like I was trying to make excuses, but everybody takes it that way. If you mess something up and, I would screw something up and be like, I'm really sorry, but, I was trying to do this, but blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. As soon as you say but, it's like you are all people hear is you're deflecting and you're giving us a bullshit reason as to what you're doing. And you just kind of have to drop that off. Yeah. You have to kind of own up to things. But I never thought about it like that about myself.
Yeah, it always seemed like even when you had like misrings or whatever, it was always like, oh yeah, I fucked that up. Can you do this thing for us? And we were just like, yeah, whatever. Like
to you guys, it was no big deal.
Yeah, we were so used to dealing with that kind of thing that like, and honestly, you didn't really do it that much. So it was probably there was all that grace of like, there's a lot of people there who made a lot of mistakes because we all and even in the kitchen. Forwards that we'd make mistakes because we all had substance abuse issues. So it was like hard to focus.
And we were the ones that gave you the substance.
Right. Yeah, we bought the substance off of you
bought
guys.
It from the damn bar. Yeah. I remember the first time I messed something up, and I think you might have been in there, but it was like the crew that was working. I rang something in, or I ran around the corner, and I came through the front window, and I was like, hey, it was like my first time as a server, and I was trying to ring something in, and I tried to talk to you guys about it, and everyone just screamed at me like, you don't come through the window with a problem, you side door it, man. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I backed off and I went back into the service station, and then I tried to like open the door and like say it again, and then everyone lost me. It was like, we already know, man. And I'm like, and then end of the day was over, and I came up to someone, it was one of the cooks, and I walked up and I'm like, hey, thanks for dealing with me earlier. I'm so sorry about that. And they're like, what are you talking about? They didn't even remember what I was talking about. And I was like, oh, it was from this and this. And I told him what happened. And I think it was Sam again. He just kind of looked at me. He was like, look, dude, it happens. in the moment. It's over. We don't even remember it. Tomorrow, no one's even going to care. It's like, no one cares now. So just let it go. And at that point, I was like, all right, moral, like, moral moment, core moment locked in. Like, not everything is as detrimental. Like, don't let things don't ride everything until it's eating your own head up. Like, just let it go.
I have that issue big time where like I'll let things eat at me, and I sometimes forget that like I'm not that important, and like no one's focusing that much energy on me as I am focusing as much energy on what had happened.
And before the world started having a name for everything and social anxiety or being triggered, before any of that happened, I used to always just think it was like my personal superpower when I was younger that I've always handled big problems quick and easy. Quick solutions for a big problem. Small things always would tear me up. But big problems, like my mom has epilepsy. I've always been dealing with epilepsy. There are times where she would have a seizure. I had to like climb over the back seat and help pull the car off the road when I was a kid. It was just me and her. There were times I came home one day and she had a seizure while on the phone, pulled the cord out of the wall, cracked her head, and was laying in the hallway. I thought she was dead because her eyes were still open, but she was unconscious. I didn't know you could pass out with your eyes open. I didn't know you could do that. I thought like if you're dead, your eyes are open. If you're not, you're closed, no matter what it is.
Sure.
So I freaked out but I had to quick react. I didn't even think about plugging the phone back in. I ran out the door, hopped the chain link with barefoot, knocked on the neighbor's door. There was a babysitter, and I was like, call an ambulance. My mom's having a problem. She's like, well, I'm a babysitter. I'm like, you're fucking useless.
Right. Like,
so I ran through another backyard to where I just came from, and I had that person's parents call an ambulance to get my mom. And I'm like, I've had to quick react. And that was when I was like 8 or something like that. 9. I don't even know. It was probably 7 or 8.
Now, when your parents divorced, do you predominantly live with your mom, or did you live with your dad? Okay.
No. I lived with my mom. I grew up and was raised by my mom. And my dad would periodically, very stereotypical mid-'80s divorcee situation. Dad would show up when dad could show up.
Oh.
And I would sit at the bay window of the house and like, Dad's supposed to be here at 2:00. And if I keep staring right there, I can see the minute the car would come past the houses and into my view. So if I just keep watching, and every time a car would come by, I'd be like, no, not that. Nope, not the red truck. Nope, not the red truck.
Wow.
But he worked for an auto shop, and sometimes he would show up in a different car.
Oh,
but
that's cool.
Sometimes he would show up an hour late. This is before cell phones, so you can't call and say, hey, I'm stuck in traffic. I'm 20 minutes down the road. He would just show up when he felt like showing up. And I would get in the truck, and I would be uncomfortable, and he would try and be like, I love you. I want to buy you something to show you I love you. Is that going to work? No. It doesn't work. I never realized it when I was a kid, but now that I'm an adult and I look back on the situation, we would stay at my cousin's house all the time. We would go over there because my cousins were, it was his brother. Mm-hmm. So we would go over there and I would play with my cousins and we would hang out and do like, let's play Star Wars. Let's watch this. Let's watch WWF. Let's just be stupid kids.
Right.
And then that's where would you want to sleep here tonight? I was excited because I get to spend overnight at my cousin's house.
Right.
And then there were times where we're going to go visit grandma. And then he's like, why don't we just stay here? And we would crash at grandma's, crash in the basement, fold out at grandma's house. Come to realize as I get older that we never went to, he never had a place. We just would stay places.
Wow.
He was married for a hot minute and I stayed there once and I never stayed there again. And then he was divorced. And then it was never, we never landed anywhere consistent. So when I get older, I realize I don't think he was a vagabond. He jumped
rambling
wherever.
Man.
Yeah, just jumped wherever. I think one person, he was fixing up someone's Winnebago. I think he bought that off of them and just kind of lived in that a lot. So we stayed in that thing one time. But he was everything smelled like spilled coffee and Camels. That's what it smelled like. Everything smelled like a Camel filtered and coffee from a gas station. So that's my memory. If I talk about him, I remember the smell of the vehicles because it was covered in Bondo dust from the auto shop.
Sure.
And then all those dude smells, very industrial.
Yeah, cigarettes and beer, basically.
Yeah. Like I never saw him drink. I gotta say, I never saw him drink. I never smelled that on him. And none of my parents really ever drank.
Really? Your dad? So
why
do you think he never really? Because I assumed there was, in my head, I guess insinuated the fact that there was some sort of alcohol or drugs involved that you were.
I never saw him do any of that stuff.
So I wonder.
He was very raw. We would get in the truck, and I just remember, like, now I'd paid attention, but like I would always sit with my thumbs in my fingers and like my hands down to my sides, like almost under my legs or in between. Like I tucked away. Like I would like kind of shrivel when I was in the car with him, because there was no real good relationship. It was just get in the car and start driving. He would listen to AM radio. He would listen to Rush Limbaugh, and he would just complain about whatever president was the president.
Sure.
Didn't matter who it was. He just hated everything. I'm like,
well, I can relate to that.
No, but I'm like, as a kid, you don't want to sit there
like,
change it up a little bit, man. And he'd be like, well, you want to go to, he took me to go see Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, like the Christy Swanson, Pee Wee Herman movie. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that was cool. And then one day, I think he's like, you into girls yet? Like, I don't know, kind of. He's like,
do we know each other that well to have that conversation?
Yeah. Have you seen any adult movies? You ever curious about that stuff? So he took me into that 21 and older room.
Holy
and like took me in there. He's like, let's pick out a movie. And I'm like, I do not. I was like very introverted at that point. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm like, I need to be out of here. We're gonna get in trouble. He didn't care. So he picked a movie and we went and we watched it in my grandma's basement. Laying together on a fold-out couch, watching porn with your old man. That was my first. So that was my first experience with an adult film.
Wow, that's blowing my mind.
Very weird.
Yeah, it is very. Yeah, I'd be in the same boat as you. I'd be feeling very, very uncomfortable. I think I've told this story before on the podcast, but like. I'm not comfortable. I don't have that kind of relationship with my parents at all. And I don't, like, there has to be boundaries in my mind. Like,
no one should have that kind of relationship with their parents.
Yeah. And you have no siblings to, like, commiserate.
Bounce that off.
Yeah.
And now I can't get an erection unless I'm laying in a bed with another man. So it's so weird.
It smells like Camel cigarettes.
Yeah, but I have to be looking at naked women, but there's got to be a dude there.
What do you think your dad's vice was?
I have no idea. Coffee,
is he still alive?
I think so. So I left for the military. I decided to join the Army.
What a weird way to rebel.
I know. Well, you know what? I wasn't even rebelling against my family. I was rebelling against the kids in school that said I couldn't do it.
Oh,
because
wow.
I was a drama kid. I was a marching band kid. I was an art kid. I was a photographer. This is the beginning of when schools were starting to have the internet. Number one was just starting when I was graduating high school. I was part of an internet symposium to talk to the government as to why we should have the internet in schools. So I was part of the school kids side of it, saying here's why we should. I was just very art.
Because you're younger than me, right? You're 34?
You're the best. I'm 44.
Oh, for some reason I thought you were younger than me.
No, I'm 44.
I never think that of anybody usually.
I just wear it well.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
But, some reason in my head you were like a year or two younger than me.
No. Yeah, I'm older than almost everybody I pretty much know. But I was all the artsy stuff, but I was friends with a lot of the kids that played football and things like that. So I'm in government class, and the recruiter's giving his pitch, and everyone's just kind of like letting him do it. And the kid next to me was like, man, I think I might sign up. And I'm like, he started talking about military intelligence and the jobs you could do and the places you could go. And I'm like, this is the way I could I can go travel and go see cool things. And then, I mean, like, how bad could it really, I was in my head for him, like, how bad could it be? And then some other kids like, are you thinking about it? Dude, we wouldn't survive 2 weeks in basic.
Oh.
And that's when I was just kind of like, now I feel like I have to. It's just like, I was like, that's it. I'm good. I'm in. So I took the test. I tested really high. I got a job. I got a military intelligence job, and I was going to go and do that. And I was all excited. And the all-pro football dude was like, just going to be like infantry, just your generic standard soldier.
What year was this?
This was 96 to 97. I graduated in 97. So
pre 9/11.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I tested in, we did our thing, and then I was all about it. My mom was just like, "What?" She had no interest in that. I was not a physical person. I expressed nothing about that beforehand. But she was just like, "Oh," she was not sure, but then she said, "Okay." Well, one day I was working at Office Max at the time, just stocking shelves in senior year high school, just nice and easy job.
Yeah.
And my dad comes storming up to me and I was like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" He's like, "I just heard from your mom. Heard join the book." Now remember, I said this guy used to listen to Rush Limbaugh all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
He was. Now that I'm older, I realize he was. I have to think he was a really red, like very conservative type of person. That was his mindset. Like he didn't care. Like he would cuss out Clinton all the time. He cussed out Bush all the time. He was just not. No one was good. Everyone was ruining the country. So now he hears that his kids go and join the service under these leadership people, and he was just like, "Oh my good God!" Like, I can't. Why would you do that? I'm not gonna. You can't do that. And I was like, "You don't get to make that decision." I'm like, "You pop in here yelling at me like you're like in my life every day. I don't see you all the time." So that was I
admire your strength. Like that is crazy for you to stand up to your dad like that.
Well, I'm in the middle of Office Max too.
Yeah,
I'm like, I mean,
you had corporate behind you.
He called me. Yeah, I had the shield of an apron on me, man. I had my name tag. I was like, "Yeah, bring it on. Can't stop this." And I just told him, like, "You don't get to make that decision." He wrote a letter to my mom. He typed it up, talking about, "I hope you're happy that your son's following in his father's footsteps." I was like, what is this? She let me read the letter. She read it and was just like, "You need to read this." The letter states that like he was not in the service. So there's more coming. You're learning a lot today.
Yes.
He basically was saying that my mom had an affair when they lived in Florida with another guy who was an ex-military guy, some dude named Jack, and that they were married at the time. And to solidify the marriage and the relationship, they moved back up to Cleveland, back around their family because she was pregnant. And he gave me his name, which is why I'm a junior, because he wanted to show that there was like, this is in the past, this is under the bridge. I will raise him as mine. But now your kid's joining the military just like his actual father, and he wasn't going to have anything of it. And he's like, "If you don't tell him, I will," and all this other blah blah blah. So she handed me the letter. She's like, "You can read this." And like I said before, snap decisions about big things. She goes, "How do you feel about this?" And I read it, and I'm like, I literally said out loud, I go, "Well, if he doesn't want to be my father, then I guess I just don't want to be his son anymore." And that was it. I verbalized it, locked it in, and then I joined the military. He didn't show up when I left. I hadn't seen him since. I was 18, and I'm 44.
Was it true though? It was like
I don't know.
So you have no idea.
I still don't know.
Whoa, that is huge. Okay,
still don't know. I never pushed it because I mean.
Did you even ask your mom? It's like,
I did.
Is there any validity to this?
Is this true? She's like, "I raised you." She's like, I don't know why you would even doubt me or question this. She's like, you know, I love you. Why would you even question whether or not I'm lying to you about this? Like, why would you doubt this? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Well, now I'm not even getting a no or a yes from any, like, I have to believe a man I don't really know that well who only picked me up every once a month, basically. Or I have to, like, yeah, you raised me, yes.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you've never hidden anything from me. That doesn't mean
the question isn't like whether or not you're my mother or you
the
love
question
or care.
is whether or not is this true.
Yeah.
And I never got a straight answer out of her, and I've never really pushed because now she's way older, she's frail, she's had a lot of medical issues. I really don't feel like rocking the boat.
Yeah.
So I have no interest in, if it is true, I really have no interest in finding this person who has no bearing on my life whatsoever.
Yeah, at that point, what does it matter?
Yeah. And I also have no interest in talking to the person who made the claim anymore. Because if you're going to, even if, you know what, there's two ways it goes in my head. It's not true, and you fabricated that thing just to like be a jerk.
Yeah, just rub it in your mom's nose
and what you're rubbing some sort of affair. But what you didn't realize is that she showed it to me, and now you just cut ties with me because now I saw what you said to her, not thinking that I was going to see it. So now I don't even know if I don't know. It blew up in his face.
Yeah,
I don't know what he was thinking was going to happen, but he I saw him one more time after that.
So he doesn't have any relationship with your kids? And,
nope. Wow. I don't even think he knows I have kids.
Wow.
He's never met my kids, no. I got out of the military. I drove from Alaska to Cleveland. When I got out, I drove through Canada, came back home. No one knew I was here. I moved in with I stayed with my parents for a couple of weeks until I could find my own thing. And then I found out.
Your mom remarried?
Yeah, she was remarried. She had remarried back in like 89. I mean, she's been remarried for a long time.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And they're good to go. I found out where he was. And I drove up to where he was staying. He was living with another woman at the time. I drove up to the house, knocked on the door. She knew me. I knew her. Like, it was someone he had been with. He had been with her for a little while before I left for the military. Mm-hmm. So I come out, knock on the door. She opens the door and she's like, "Oh my God, hi." And I'm like, "Hey, is he here?" She's like, "Yeah, hang on." He comes to the door. He went pale. He was just like, "Oh my God." He's like, "I never thought I'd see you again." I didn't write him one letter when I was gone. Never called him. Didn't know where to contact him. He, like I said, vagabond kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, do you want to come in?" I go, "No, you're getting in my car and we're driving somewhere." So I picked him up. I put him in my car. We drove to a coffee shop. And and I've never seen him again.
Yeah. I was like, this just became Patreon episodes.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. We went where I wanted to go, and it was on my terms. And I said, "You're going to tell me what the hell you were trying to get at with that letter. This is your chance."
Oh.
Was this true? Was this not true? He goes, It is true. It is absolutely true. He's like, he was willing to like take anything to prove that it was true. He was very much verifying it. He told me about the whole backstory that I've already told you about the whole guy in Florida thing. And I was just like, all right, well, I'm like, now I'm torn. I'm like, either you were, like, you never needed to give me any courtesy as your own, but you still did. Mm-hmm. So the times that you showed up late, you didn't even need to show up at all if you didn't. Well, like I'm like in my head, I'm like, did you not put a lot of effort in because you knew I really wasn't? Now that you're out of the marriage, are you trying to like hang on to a thread, or you just have like a sympathy thing? Like,
no, think about it though.
Philosophical questions just go wrong through your head.
Let's roll that back a little bit, because if you think about it though, it's still ego driven from his. Because like, okay, say for instance, you know, your mom did have that affair. Then did he like blow up the relationship between the two of them just so he can have ownership over your mom to move her back to Ohio? Like, I almost feel as though he had like this ego trip of being like, oh, now I'm going to be raising this guy's kid as like, and I'm going to get one over on this dude, move her back to Ohio, and then realize that I resent her for the thing that she did in Florida, and I blew up that relationship, and now you don't have a relationship with that guy because of his ego.
And I never dove that far into.
Did I make any sense there?
I get you.
Okay.
I get what you're saying. But I never thought about it like that. I just was like, okay, all I know is he shit-canned anything he had with me. If he wanted something with me, by doing that, you inevitably just kind of blew it up. Like, because now at this point, and then you're verifying it. So now I'm just like even less interested in like, well, what are we going to continue anything for? So I was 21. So I'm 44. So it's been 23 years. I haven't talked to him in 23 years. Very Krusty the Clownish.
Yeah.
Only there's no.
Wow. Like, that's crazy. So did your mom and your stepdad didn't have any kids?
My stepdad has a daughter from his first marriage.
Stepsister?
So I have a stepsister. Yes.
But that is vastly different from having somebody who's like.
Right. But she never lived with us. Like, she stayed with her mom. She was already, when they got married, it was 89. I was 10. Yeah. I was 10. And she was probably 16, 15. She was a little bit older than me. So she stayed with her mom. She was old enough to make that decision. She wanted to be there. So she never came and lived in the house with me. And I never went and really hung out with her because there was no need for that to ever occur. So our relationship never really started until recently. Like now, in the past like 5 years, her and I have had more communication.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is, yeah, it's cool. She like, hey, I saw this and I thought about your kids and I got them some trucks. And I was like, oh, nice. Hey, I got a pool in my backyard. You should come over in the summer and let them swim. You're more than welcome. I'm like, awesome. So she's super cool.
Oh, that's awesome that you have that relationship with her. Now, is she's married, I'm assuming? Or
she is married, yes.
Any kids of her own?
No.
Got it.
So
that's kind of cool, though. She still has that, like...
She focuses on career more than worrying about...
Sure. And yeah, I mean, I get that. And, like, she still wants that relationship with her nephews, which is
a little
cool.
bit. Well, she's only met him, like, twice. But she still cares about it. I mean, like, she knows that, like, you know, she sees pictures and she hears stories and talks to my...
Does she have any other siblings or step-siblings or anything like that?
Nope.
So that's probably, like, another thing for her is, like,
She's extending the family. She's trying to extend her family by keeping touch with me on my side, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a kind-hearted person. Yeah. Like that just shows like whether or not that really kind of develops in anything. It just shows the kind of like what kind of character she is. You know,
I think we both recognize that at this point in our lives, it's like we don't need to go and try and have dinner with each other. We don't need to go and like we don't need to do the semantics.
Sure,
go through the phases and the pomp and circumstance of the whole thing. We just. Hey, we're old enough that you've got some kids. I want to be nice to your kids. You know, like
we can be friends. Type thing.
we're at a good level.
More friends than family at that point. Really.
She, it's unfortunate. Her husband's actually like kind of like on home hospice, so he's like bedridden completely. So he's on home care. She's like, you know, her house is big enough though. She said if and when the time comes where he passes away, she was talking about splitting the home, putting another door in the front. I could have the front half. She could have the back half. She has a home practice, psychiatry practice out of her home.
Got it.
She was going to just use the back half for living and for her practice and give me the whole front of the house. And then in the summertime, she's only home in the summertime. And in the wintertime, she goes to Florida and lives in Florida. So she's like, you're going to have the whole house in the winter.
How does she get her husband down to Florida?
She flies him. I think that's crazy. I'm like, what plane puts a person who's like, he's wired, he's tubed up and stuff. I don't know how they fly, but she flies him.
Wild.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. That's personal opinions.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is. It's her life. I'm not gonna comment on.
We're not here to talk about her life.
I don't want to like pass any judgment on. I'm not in that situation, so I don't even.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even know where to begin with it. So, how do you feel like that relationship with your parents or with your dad and everything has kind of translated over into your relationships? If you want to get into that at all.
I don't know. I've never. I mean, mostly raised and educated about life by my mom. Once my stepfather came into the picture, when you're younger like that, a 10-year-old doesn't want to hear too much, you know, like life lessons from some new guy.
Sure.
Just the way it is. I just didn't have any interest in hearing it. Like, I mean, he turned off. My room was upstairs. He yelled up the stairs one time. He's like, "Are you doing homework?" I said, "No." And then he turned the light off. He's like, "Then you don't need the lights on. Waste energy." I'm like, what? So I walked down the stairs and I walked in the living room. I sat down on the couch and I was like, "What are we watching?" I'm like, my mom's like, "Oh, Night Court or Cheers or something like that." I'm like, "All right, cool." So I reached up and I smacked the button on the wall. I was like, "Guess we don't need the lights on, do we?" He got so mad at me. I pay the bills, and I'm like, "I'm just throwing it back at you, man." This is. But I mean,
it's so surprising too that
such a small thing too.
Yeah, but it also too. It seems like you have this this independent spirit. Like, it's so wild to me that you joined the military to be told what to do.
Oh, every single person when I was in the military, every person that I had to come in contact with is like, "You don't fit this." I'm like, "No, I don't." But once again, I will adapt to the situation and I will do my job the best I have to. When I was in the military, I was stationed up in Alaska. When I was up there, I would do my day. And then the day was over, 4 o'clock, 4:30, whatever. I would get back, I would change, pop on jeans and a sweater or whatever, and then drive into town. And I would audition for Death of a Salesman or Christmas Carol, whatever shows they were doing in the local theater. I auditioned for local theater, became friends with the local theater people, and I was doing theater shows in town
while you were in the military.
While I was in the military, and then I met one of the guys in the show had a radio show on the college campus. So Mondays, do my military day, get out, go rehearse, like my role in like Death of a Salesman. And then after the rehearsal, we would hit the bar really quick, grab a pint. I wasn't even old enough to drink, but he's like, no one cares up there.
Yeah.
You're 20. You're getting one bass dark. No one's going to care.
Right.
Grab a beer, and then him and I would drive up to the University of, the UAF, Alaska Fairbanks, University of Alaska, whatever. We would get on the campus, walk through the building, and then go to the radio station, and I would DJ a radio show with him at the end of the night.
Wow.
On Monday night.
That is crazy. I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
I was more a townie than anything.
There was really no war even really. It was the Cold War happening. So you guys weren't really doing much.
Yeah, there was nothing going on. I mean, like the Iraq War was over with basically. Like there was no need for me to worry about anything like that happening. But
yeah, the Cold War is kind of funny because it's just two like catty leaderships just kind of throwing heat at each other.
Yeah.
Like you're a jerk. No, you're a jerk. Cold War.
No, I didn't. I did nothing. We were just up there. I mean, most military bases, you're just maintaining. You're there to be all over the country, just placed in spots, and yeah, I just went through the motions.
How's now everything that you've experienced, your relationship with your dad, your stepdad, your mom? How's you see some of those influences now that you're a father? For better or worse.
What?
Yeah. Now that you're a dad, how has that influenced how you raise your kids?
The one thing honestly, I can say the one thing that I've always kept in the back of my head was, here's how this moment went. Here's how this moment didn't happen. Lock that in and don't let that happen, or that's the way I want it to be. So I didn't have there was no real father figure. So now I have to kind of create all that a lot of it from scratch. Like, I don't know okay, my one kid loves technology. The other kid loves like sports and he's physical. I'm like, I know the technology side because I chose that as a kid. I dove into video games, comics, and pop culture. So I can get along with the tech nerd kid who wants to play like Magic cards and learn about like that kind of stuff. And then my other kid is more into sports, so I have to be willing to kind of like learn to do it. So it's like the lack of growing up makes me realize I have to make sure that I provide that. Like, got it. Don't just ignore it. Like, well, that's what you're into. Like, oh, good for you. I'm glad you're happy. Like, follow your dreams. Like,
right.
Like kitten poster. You have to actually. I got to go into it. So I dive into
keyboard. Like,
yeah. So I mean, like, we go play soccer. We make sure we get to the park. We make sure I run around. I want to incorporate everything. But I mean, my mom had to go back to work. She didn't have a lot of time to stay home and like take me to the park. We didn't go on vacations. We didn't have money for that kind of stuff. So I get my kids passes to Cedar Point. We go to Cedar Point all the time, and it's a thing to do. We go to the park. We'll go to Lakewood Park, and we'll watch the sunset. Make sure we have key moments. So I made sure that I had a place. Like like I said, I realized like my dad was a vagabond, man. Like, so core thing number one, make them have a place that feels like home.
Sure.
When they're with me, because obviously, I don't know, we have not spoken about that, but I'm not married anymore. Right. So,
I try to get into it a little bit, but like I didn't know how much of that you wanted really out there. But we can establish that you're divorced.
It's no longer together. So, so the first thing I did was when I was looking for places, like, I'm like, I'm rebooting everything. I don't have furniture. I don't have anything. So we're going to start small. We have to build back up. Found an apartment. Bring them with me. The first thing I wanted to do was be inclusive. So do you guys like this place? This place kind of smells. Okay, I guess we're not. All right, fine. No. go to the next place. So we looked around a little bit, and then we found a place, and they're like, hey, and like I knew it was a good choice because they're like, oh, this could be our room, and the bed could go in the corner. I'm like, as soon as they started like placing in their heads how they could see it being,
sure,
I was like, all right, they're happy, they like this place. So I got that place. Make sure I like paint their room different. Make sure it's different than the rest of the apartment because it's theirs. This is your space. Get them their own furniture. Get them toys. Get them like make it habitable or habitable.
Right.
Habitable. But I that's something I never had when I was a kid. If I went with my father, I was wearing what I'm wearing, and if I slept in whatever. I'm sleeping in this. Like this was it. I didn't think about packing a bag. I didn't think I had to do that. But he never had anything for me anywhere we went. There was never, this is your stuff. All my stuff always came back with me. With my kids now, I don't want that. I want them to be able to like, no, this is staying with me. This is our stuff. Like, you have a home here. You have a home with your mom. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make sure that that's established. And I've come to find out that that's not how a lot of things go with a lot of separated dads. Like, Christmas is lesser. Like sometimes you have sometimes they don't have the same feel, but I want them to come over with me. There's your tree. We put it up. We have all our own ornaments. We have our stockings. We have all your gifts. We have everything. Like I want it to be almost, it's not going to be the same, but it's going to be, it's still ours. And like, we make cookies.
It doesn't have to be the same for them. For them, it doesn't, I was saying the other day, I don't think there's anything closer than anyone's ever going to experience to unconditional love than the love of a child to their parent. Like, they doesn't like a lot of, because even the fucked up shit that you have with your dad or whatever, there's still a sense of like, I love this guy, or like there's a sense of like, I don't know, like. There's still like that, like, oh, I care about this person.
I don't know.
Yeah, but you still like, you still do like you otherwise none of that would like matter to you. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. I really, because what I've done, and I get like philosophical in my head if I'm thinking about it. If I found out, if my cousin called me tomorrow and said he passed away, number one, I wouldn't know unless my cousin got a hold of me. I would not know. So if he called me and said, "Hey man, your dad," I don't like. And at this point, I still have to call him. I say my dad, but at this point, it's like a mystery situation.
Sure.
So, like, hey, he's gone. The service is on Friday. I don't know if I would go. I don't know what would I do? Would I tell the kids? Hey, this guy you never met, he's dead. They'd be like, okay. Like, there's no emotional connection. It's been so long.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I should have that, like, a modicum of something somewhere, but I think after all the stuff that he just kept, like, he triple stamped it, man. Like, he just kept saying,
that is true.
Like, hey, look, once again, telling you, this is not the way it is. Be like, ugh.
I mean, he did do a lot of things to kind of push you away. So I kind of get where you're coming from.
It might have been there in the past, but we never had a good cultured relationship. Even when he would pick me up before I knew any of that stuff, he'd pick me up and we'd go drive around. We literally, I forgot about this. One of our nights together, like I said, he was an auto guy. So we went into the parking lot of Great Northern Mall near the Sears parking lot. We drove up and we parked in the parking lot, and I'm like, what are we doing? He's like, well, we're getting dinner. I'm like, we're going to the mall for dinner. Mall's closed. What are you talking about? 3 Snap-on trucks. Snap-on trucks, those Snap-on tools, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah,
and they sell their tools by driving around. They sell the tools from the trucks. That's still how they do it. So Snap-on is like a really automotive, like that's a big automotive thing.
That's like the tool for
the automotive world, other than Craftsman stuff. But this is like even more gourmet tools, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, it's like the high-end Craftsman or whatever.
He knew all the drivers. He knew all the reps. So 3 trucks had all like kind of like Conestoga wagoned in the parking lot. And in the middle of the triangle of them, they had a grill, and they were grilling. I'll never forget it. He's like, we're here. We're going to get some steak. I'm like, what? They were grilling like Angus steaks. They had these giant Angus steaks, and they were grilling out, hanging out. I like once again seriously don't remember him drinking. It wasn't like a drinking beer thing. We
So
met
he wasn't
these
like an
guys.
alcoholic or
Nope.
anything.
But we just met these 3 dudes in a parking lot of the mall to eat steak.
Honestly, that makes him even less endearing in my mind. It's like, you were an asshole for no reason.
Why are we here?
Yeah.
You can't even put off boys' night to hang out with me like for once. Like,
Yeah.
Can we go do something else?
You were just
anything. Take
like,
me to Chuck E. Cheese.
Substance abuse would be at least an excuse why you're such a
At least
dick.
you have a reason. I know.
Yeah.
No, he's just a flake. He was flaky.
Yeah, that's wild.
He didn't know how to have a kid, man. He just didn't know how to be a dad. He just wanted to be like, he tried to be he always was just giving me that one of the boys kind of vibes. And
yeah, I mean, that's kind of how, I had a good dad growing up, but he's kind of the same way. It's like, he still struggles with like how to be a dad.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think he knows, because his dad was kind of like, his dad was an alcoholic who,
Right.
would beat up on them all the time. And
yeah.
so he like struggles. He's trying and he's done a good job, but like he still has his moments where he's like, I just don't know how to be a dad. Like, he just straight up.
But even, like, if he can present it and be very like modest about that situation, that's still something.
Yeah,
That's
I don't think he's ever.
Hey, I'm trying, and you're like, I read between the lines when you're like, hey,
Yeah.
look, this is the best I got. I'm trying. Like, all right.
I think his version of like caring and like, because he was a provider. He provided pretty well for us growing up, and but he didn't really know how to do really a lot of the other stuff as a dad. So he tried. He put efforts in when he could, and I appreciate it. Like, him and we don't have a great relationship, but we don't have a bad one either.
That's good.
So
I mean, we're talking like, oh God, my mom put me in like Little League, like right outside T-ball. Like, T-ball's over, now you're actually hitting the ball that's being thrown at you. And I was not good at baseball because I'm a lefty, and no one knows how to pitch to a lefty when you're a kid. You get hit in the hip every 10 seconds.
pretty much.
I was playing outfield because I also sucked at sports, so they just stuck. I'm the kid that they stuck out in the field, like, remember that Pizza Hut commercial where the kid's singing about being in left field, where the dandelions are all tall grass, and he's like, no one hits the ball this way, and then he gets that one pop fly, and then he gets pizza. I never had the glory moment, but I remember one day, like, this goes back to the dad story. I'm standing in the outfield and I'm looking over at the seats, and my mom didn't come to games. She was working. She was a single family thing. So I didn't ever look for any family member in the crowd. No one came to watch me play, which is probably why I had no motivation to really be any good at the game. I didn't give a rat's ass about hitting the ball or being any good at the sport. I looked over in the bleachers one day and I was like, oh my God, my dad is at my game. No way. I'm like, I never thought I would see him come to a game. So I'm in the outfield. Now I'm just like, come on, strike this bastard out. I just want to go and like say hi to my dad. Oh my God, I'm so jazzed. My dad's here. And finally we're out. And I go running over to the edge and I get over to the seats and I get about as close as we are right now. And I'm screaming dad the whole time. Dad, dad. And I get this far away and I realize it's not my dad.
Oh.
I was like, dad. And I ran past the guy. I'm like, this is probably the earliest moment where I realized that I'm pretty good at some improv shit. I ran past him and was like, oh, dad. Oh, never mind. And I was like, I had to like blow it off. Like, I wasn't going to go hug the dude and be like, oh,
you're doing a bit.
What are you doing?
Yeah. You try to play it off as a bit.
What's up? Yeah. So I ran to another kid. I'm like, what's up, man? Like, I was saying Brad. And it's like, Gallo. Yeah. I didn't know what to do. So I ran past him and started saying Brad.
I mean, that's a pretty good move.
Yeah. Yeah, pro move.
Yeah, it probably
pro
worked.
move when you're 7.
Yeah, I would have probably just shit myself and be like, I gotta go home.
Fell for the old thought my family cared moment again.
So that, like, now that you're a dad, like, you try to like make sure that they have some semblance of like foundation with you and making memories that are like, I guess, more specific to like how you like in a safe space for them as well.
Yeah,
that
I talk to them all the time. Now that they're old enough and the way technology is nowadays, they have Chromebooks. Every kid has a Chromebook in school. So I was like, you guys can message me. They don't even call it email anymore. I'm like, Eric, send me a message. He's like, oh, yeah, okay. So now he screenshots. He's like, Dad, I drew this today on my pixel art. Or like back and forth all the time.
rules.
Talk to them all the time. When I was quarantined with COVID, and it was actually their mom's idea. We drew up on a piece of paper. We played Battleship on just sent up notebook paper through Zoom. So we'll do that. I pick them up during the week. Sometimes I just pick them up after school and we hang out for a couple hours. Sometimes I'll take them for the night and then take them to school during the week. So I try and get them as much as I can.
Nice.
So it's not just, that's another thing I gained from the what do's and don'ts. Don't just be the every other weekend warrior.
Sure.
I try and see them as much as I can throughout the week. Try to instill that moment with them and have even if we do nothing, we're doing it together. We're hanging out watching a movie, or we're gonna binge all the Spider-Man movies that they want to watch, or we're gonna make cookies because that's what they want to do. And I'm like, all right, cool.
And avoid porn.
Yeah.
Because there needs to be...
For 3 more years.
Yeah, there needs to be boundaries.
You got to be 11.
Yeah, it needs to be boundaries.
Yeah, we're going to avoid the porn. I mean, I don't even watch... I love horror movies. I'm a huge horror movie guy. I can't wait to show them all the crap that I want to show them and have them just get all excited about it and scared and oh, you can't sleep tonight? Isn't that great? I want that. And then here I come to find out that the way it's going at home is she's like, well, tonight we're watching Misery, and if you guys don't want to watch it, you need to leave the room. So they've seen Misery, they've seen Pet Sematary, they've seen Poltergeist, they've seen there's a movie called The Boy where it's a doll, but
I don't remember that one.
The doll's alive, but it's not. It's I don't want to spoil the movie, but not like this is a horror podcast. But
you're right.
But there's 2 of them. There's a boy and then there's a sequel. They've seen both of those. They watch Supernatural on Netflix. They've seen the Stranger Things. So they watch movies, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I'm I try and screen everything first. To me, Misery is not right for a 10-year-old to watch Misery. They don't. What are you going to get out of that?
Yeah.
It's all dialogue.
Again, there needs to be boundaries. Or I don't know, my dad would do that too, where it was we'd pick a movie, he'd get to pick a movie, and then we'd get to pick a movie. But we always had to watch his movie first, because he knew that if we didn't...
You would be gone.
Yeah. There'd be no interest at all for his movie.
Yep.
And so he would get Citizen Kane or The Network.
The Network.
Yeah, he would get these movies that I'm Ben-Hur or what was the other one? Spartacus.
He's picking long ones.
Yeah, and
he's not even giving you that.
No, and it's I'm not gonna
short film, guys.
I'm not gonna I'm not gonna understand Citizen Kane at 8 years old.
Well, you're gonna understand the surface value of it, but it's still so weird.
Yeah, it's very odd, but it was always that kind of shit. Where it's I think it was something he was trying to teach us in there, but I don't know. Maybe I was just too stupid to get it.
No,
or just a kid, No,
you're good. I mean, we watch I'll screen the movies that we're gonna watch, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. They love that movie. I'm okay, well, there's nothing bad in that movie. It's really nothing happens.
But that's the cool thing about what you want to show them is that's just pure entertainment. There's no real life lessons to be learned in those movies.
No, not at all.
So,
but I mean, not in that one, no. But yeah, you know what? Clowns are weird. It's but I mean, I don't know. I try and learn from the things I either did or did not have from family, growing up, social cues from kids, social stuff like that. Life at home, life at school, life with my dad, the night that he would pick me up or whatever, pick up all that stuff and just kind of you got to piece it together. No one knows how to raise a child. You can read every book in the world and you're still going to have people go, oh, of all these other people that have friends of mine that have kids, no one ever told me about this. And then there's always something where you have to figure it out yourself. And every time you think that you've overcome the hardest part, you just overcame that hard part. But now there's a new hard part that's going to go oh man, potty training was so impossible. And now I've got to teach them how to not fall off something when they climb it on a playground, or how to ride a bike, or now they've got to deal with now my kid's dealing with 5th grade social cues. And now I've got to teach him how to handle social stigmas and
with the last name Boner
picking. No one's giving him shit about that.
No one's giving him shit about that's see, I actually think that kids are growing up in a really great culture today because everyone claims that they're they're so soft and blah blah blah, or like boomers will make fun of Gen Z and Gen Z will make fun of boomers. It's like, you guys both have like your own traumas to deal with. Like they got shot at in Vietnam, but these kids are getting shot at in the classroom
in their school. Yeah,
right. So there's still that trauma. There's still that, like, they still have their own hardships to deal with. And so like I think the thing I like most about today's culture is that they're very encouraging of one another, and that amount of encouragement is going to lead to very good and positive things.
Right. Like he's excited because he doesn't have gym class anymore. I'm like, oh, well, cool. I'm like, well, I remember being a kid who was like, I don't want to be in gym.
Yeah.
But he's like excited, but now they've replaced his gym class. He's taking an extra class. He's taking a STEM class. And he's excited. He's like, well, that's where all my friends are. I can be in a class with all the kids that I get along with. I'm like, cool, you found your niche. Good. I've heavily encouraged him to. Kids are going to pick on you, man. I'm like, kids are assholes. I told him so. I'm like, kids are assholes. And he just looked at me like, I can't believe you said that. I'm like, deal with it. You know I'm right.
Right.
He's like, yeah, you're right. And I'm like, it's not going to stop. Nothing you do is going to stop them. The more you try, the more they're going to do it. Let them get it out of their system. Ignore them, and you know who you are. Just don't let it get to you, and just keep doing what you like, and you'll be fine. And he's just kind of been like, okay. And I think it's finally sinking in because he's very excited about his STEM school. He wants to do invention camps. He's into watching like YouTube videos about like that. There's this dude who does like, he's an ex-NASA engineer who like does experiments, and he's like, can we do these? I'm like, yes, we can do these.
That's cool.
So he wants to do that stuff. Like, embrace it, man. And then the other, like I said, my other kid is all sporty and wants to get into that kind of stuff. I'm like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
Got an 8-year-old doing push-ups in my living room. I'm like, I'll do them with you, I guess.
There's still ways in sports to be nerdy. I've figured that out. It's like all the technology that goes into like the cleats or the helmets or the whatever, the equipment part of it. Yeah. It's like, I kind of like, I guess in my mind, that's kind of what I obsessed over. Because I was never very good at being athletic, so I had to like focus on other things, like in order to keep it interesting for myself, which has got to make your home life has got to be a lot easier than your professional life, considering now you are raising or like your job entails making sure. So I guess so what do you do for a living again? I'm trying to describe it in a clever way or trying to pull it in, and I'm failing at it, so I might as well just have you do it.
I like how you're tying my children into my job, which makes absolutely no.
There's no connection between the two. I guess your life as a father's got to be significantly easier than your professional life.
Sometimes it's a whole other ball. Up until recently, my job had been to travel. I work for a third-party company, like a larger corporation, that has their hands in different like food service and this and that. So I wasn't a traveling assistant director for prison. So I was traveling around to different prisons and working in different kitchens, teaching inmates how to cook, getting them ServSafe certified, so they could literally be like just like a cook in any restaurant should be ServSafe certified, like how to handle temperatures, how to know the right things. Sure. But I'm also dealing with theft, dealing with guys stealing things all the time, guys having attitudes because they're still prison. It's still inmate on inmate. So these guys have issues with each other. I'm working in supermax prisons. I'm working in lower level prisons. I've traveled all around from Cleveland, like coastal small places up here, all the way down to like near Cincinnati. I've had to jump all over the place. So I've been in more, and I tell some of the dudes that I work with,
all the good.
I've been in more prisons than some of the guys that are actually in prison. Like I've been to more of them.
Yeah.
So like, they'll try and like fact check me. They're like, you ever been to Lebanon? I'm like, I've been to Lebanon. And they're like, okay, all right. I'm like, you ever been here? They're like, no. I'm like,
so yeah, we'll get into that into the Patreon episodes. So if you want to hear all the stories of Will and all these different prisons and his
prison
life
tales,
his prison tales, which are wild, some of the stuff that you've told me in the past. So go over onto the Patreon and check it out there. I don't have the Patreon. I'll probably plug that in later because I don't have it populated yet. I got to do that. That's my next step. So go over to patreon.com/insert new Patreon page there.
Don't actually search for that.
Well, I'm telling future me to edit.
Oh, okay.
At this point.
Well, I'm making fun of you for it. So.